Portions of the following program may have been pre-recorded.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, no, it's a fucking beast, man. And like you said, going back to even day one of broadcasting school, you don't get it for the money, right?
Right.
And at least for me, another statistic I remember them saying day one was broadcasting is among the highest fields in alcoholism, divorce rates, and suicides. So I'm like, that's a great start to get into this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will leave. Day two, people weren't there because they heard you can't make money off it unless you're knocking something out of the park that no one else has done, or you've perfected a formula. You can't make money in it, or you're gonna end up drunk, suicidal, and divorced.
I think my class started with 22 and I ended with 3, myself included.
I want to say that me, Jimmy from Sports Avenue podcast,
that's right,
which he hates, by the way. I had a conversation with him.
Does he
day.
really?
Yeah.
Why?
We'll talk about it in a second.
It was a good podcast.
It was, and he had guests. But I think it was me, Jimmy, and one other person that graduated. I think we started with like 25 in ours. And again, it's less than a year.
Yeah.
You're in the
Wait,
school.
so what, did Jimmy just move on? Like he doesn't want to?
No, Jimmy's got a good career that he's pursuing now.
Okay.
But we hung out the other night. You were there, and we went and got food. And I don't know why we were talking about. I think podcasting specifically we were talking about,
right.
And how he brought up he doesn't understand how people listen to podcasts. I'm like, no, I get it, because like a lot of them are very bad.
Yeah.
Like you genuinely, it's just the same as talk radio. You have to be engaging, and you have to have a listenership that you built around.
Right.
And we were talking about it, and he goes, even when I was doing Sports Avenue, I don't understand why I was doing that. And what do you mean? He goes, because I listened back to him, and I've listened back to him, and like I don't enjoy listening to myself have these interviews. Like I don't think it's good content. So like I can't imagine, people would be flocking to it.
Interesting.
And I told him, like, that's the thing, is you're always going to be your biggest critic regardless.
Right.
And certainly if you're not having a good time or you're not feeling it, that's going to be the biggest factor, and that'll come across. But like, I told him, like, there's a lot of weeks on the Rebel Radio Show where we talk about the stupidest fucking stories.
Right.
And I end the show and I go, it was fun, but there's no substance. Like, I don't know, what someone's going to listen to in this. And then it'll be one of our top fucking episodes out of the blue.
Well, yeah. And like, you can't pontificate.
Yeah.
Like we know people, one person in particular, that falls into that. And it's like, dude, I don't want to be lectured at when I turn on my radio.
Right.
I really don't. And that might be why you don't get any hours. But like, he just sits there and like, he'll pontificate because he thinks his opinion is God. Like it is the end all be all. It's not. It's not, like because first, that's a terrible way of thinking if you're going to be in this line of work,
right,
or if you want to try to do this as a hobby, because you have to be willing to not only hear the person's point of view, but understand it so you can really critique it and argue.
Right.
And if you don't have that basic understanding, your show's going to suck. Like because we've talked somewhat political, and
sure,
I think people understand that we're in the middle, or we lean one way or the other on
sure,
certain things. But we understand why somebody would think the way that they do about this. We might not agree with them, but we understand it, because if it ever is brought up, you have to be able to discuss it, and you have to be able to understand where they're coming from to then ask a follow-up question. But if you're just going to hear, if you think the sky is green and the grass is blue, and that's what you're setting, and somebody's like, well, you know what? Grass might be green. And then you just absolutely lose your mind, and you're not going to be successful at this.
I think in radio and I think in podcasting alike, I think that's a very common occurrence of, for some reason, people think having a show, even if it's, hey, I started a podcast last week, having a show and talking to a microphone gives them some kind of authority.
Well, it's social media too.
Yeah.
Like, all my stuff's private. All of it. The only people who follow me are people that I've met or my family.
Mm-hmm.
That is it. That's it. I don't care. I don't care. It is private. I don't want likes. I don't want to, I hardly post.
Right.
The only time I post is if something like really cool happens, or if like something really drastic is going on with work and they ask me to retweet something.
Sure.
That's about it. That's it. I don't care. I don't think I'm that important. I really don't. And I don't think people give a shit what I think, or if they do, that's really cool. I don't care what I think. So I can't assume that other people do.
going back to the whole "you're not Howard Stern" argument,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you and I both know people in the industry that have that mindset of a holier than thou mindset because they've been in radio or they're on the radio or they have a podcast or they do a show.
Yep.
And it's such a weird in between, right? Because it's normal people. It's just a job, right?
Right.
It really is like, I'm going to the fucking, I'm going to go work at Giant Eagle today. I'm going to go work at Lowe's today, right?
Mm-hmm.
My job is no more important than your job. Is what I'm getting at, right?
Right.
But there's people that'll sit there and go, "Oh no, I'm a celebrity. I'm a celebrity because I'm on air. I do this show. I've been in it this many years," and it's so fucking, to anyone else in the industry.
Yeah.
It's comical.
Well, and it's usually really funny because the people that have been there for a long time don't even think of themselves like that.
Right.
They don't. And if they do think of themselves like that, it's because they went to Sirius Radio and then they sold out. And then they have their fat sidekick sitting there giggling the whole time.
Yeah.
But they're probably on Ozempic now, so they're probably skinny. Which, best of luck with that in 10 years.
Not putting anything, no specific.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
No, I mean, but we're putting it right on the nose.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, but that's like, I guess, I don't know. I guess I don't understand the ego of it.
There's a lot.
Because, and like, I was always very thankful for my job, and like, and we've made jokes about the firing and the rehire fight. Like, I think I'm at like 10 in 6 years.
You're going for a record,
right? But I knew how lucky I was because I would watch the chairs get empty around me,
right?
And somehow I'm still here, and I don't know why I'm still here. I guess they haven't come across my number in the giant Rolodex of employees yet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've also been laid off. And I know how bad that sucks. Now, it was because of COVID, so kind of a different thing.
Right.
Or the 2020, so we don't get banned.
Yeah, we're going to get flagged on Spotify.
Right, because we said something. We're going to have COVID misinformation. But, so I know what that's like. But I don't know. I always felt very lucky.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to have a job in the industry, or to have somebody come up to me and go, "Hey, let's start a podcast."
Right. Because
that means they see something. They think I'm entertaining enough that I would be able to talk or carry a topic. But I don't know. And especially since I made the career change, it's really weird. Like, don't get me wrong, I still love it. But it's never loved me back.
Okay, Dolph Ziggler. Okay.
No, for real. Like, it's never loved me back. And I mean, that first year and a half, I was getting 12 hours a week, and I was at the station 50 hours. And I was only clocked in for 12 of those. And don't get me wrong, I love the people that I met. I made incredible friendships. I still talk to them to this day. But, like, I haven't been in radio for going on 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about. In July, it'll be... Well, hold on. Yeah, in July, it'll be 2 years.
You are truly off air.
Right. And I miss it. But I don't miss, ironically enough, the politics of it.
Yeah.
I don't miss the politics of it. And the holier than thou, because it just, like, to me, I guess, because we really haven't gotten into what my job is currently, but whatever. But I guess for me, I got sick and tired of talking about just like the bad news.
Oh, yeah.
And I had the opportunity to not change anything, but have our opinions heard.
Sure.
Because people that get to be in the position that I'm in, they're usually some jackass idiot who grew up rich, whose daddy got him a job because he knows somebody. And I get people are like, for those of you who don't know, I work in politics now. I help out.
Politics?
Right.
What?
When I'm on the road, when I'm not on the road with Striper, like I help out with certain things here and there, and people call for my opinions and stuff, and I help them with like legislation and what should happen. And I don't know, dude, I guess, and it's, and I'll tie this all together, why this is really weird. But I got sick and tired of talking about the bad news and nobody would do anything about it. And I would get done reading it and I'd go, like, I would almost have resentment towards God when it came to it. And I'd be like, why don't you do something about it? Like, what are you doing to help what are you doing to help this situation? And when I got the call to join up with the people that I joined up with, I guess it kind of clicked for me that, like, hey, dummy, he's doing something.
Sure, yeah.
Like he's giving you this opportunity to speak for people and because the people that you talk to, these are everyday people, dude. Like you're an everyday person. You know the struggle. You were making $9 an hour on 12 hours a week and still paying your bills and everything else.
Right.
So like when the moment I got that opportunity to be able to do that, it changed my relationship completely with God. And I'm not saying like I'm on a mission from God, nothing like that, but like to be able to actually be able to do something, because everybody does that. Well, why doesn't God do something about it? He did, dummy. He made you. He made you, and he made you with these set of skills that you could go out there and you can do something with it. If you can communicate, you're going to communicate what you need or what other people need. Like you have that opportunity to do that. And the reason why this is really weird is because recently I've been looking for a church. I feel like I need to go to church.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, yeah, Sundays, I'll watch on YouTube, and there was one that I really liked. I grew up going to, but the last one I watched, it wasn't it. Not one time did they read scripture. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of talking to this girl on Instagram. It's weird, whatever. But I noticed she goes to this church, and I'm like, hey, is this a good church? And she's like, well, let me send you the sermon from today. And I go, all right. She's like, skip like to 20 minutes because that's when they start preaching. First 20 minutes of singing. Okay. And I skip ahead. And the whole reason I stopped going to church is because of the conflict. There was a church I went to as a kid. It completely split to the point like it's not even around anymore. None of the people go to that building anymore. It's a church, but it's a completely different like set of people. But it'd be hard for me to go back there because I remember what it was like.
Right.
Not saying that they do a bad job. It just, And I skip ahead, and the guy goes, today I'm going to talk about conflict in the church. And I'm like, ooh, that's weird. Like, okay, that's kind of hitting in the feels. That's weird. So he goes on for 25 minutes about that. And at one point he's like, he kind of switches it up and he starts talking about the apostles and how they just did it because they knew they had to do it.
Right.
And he starts talking about this like church camp he was at. And it was up in the mountains in California, and there was like this little cabin set up. And the one guy, his wife and his family lived there, and it was him, his wife, and little newborn baby. And he's like, well, why don't you bring the baby down, while I'm working? And she's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not chancing the kid getting sick. And the snow just kept piling up. And it got to the point that he would have to walk through this heavy snow because the snow kept piling up. And at the end of it all, they're like, well, who was supposed to shovel? And they're sitting there and they're pointing fingers. They're doing all that. And the pastor goes, you want to know who was supposed to shovel? The person closest to the shovel. And I was like, shit. Like, okay, that's what I needed.
Right.
Like, that's what I needed to hear.
Well, so let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Switching careers.
Yeah.
Because of the factors at play, do you feel like you're making a difference? Or at least working towards making a difference?
I think I am.
Okay.
I hope. I'm going to get emotional. I hope I am, because I've talked to enough parents. I've talked to enough kids that are sick.
Sure.
And that hurts, man.
Yeah.
When you're talking to, a 12-year-old that they don't know. Mm-hmm. They don't know. And if I could have that kid's back and try to make sure that, like, the simple things, man, like clean food, clean water, like that's what I'm like. We could sit and we could talk about all the culture issues and all the things that trend.
Right.
I don't care about those. I don't. I care about whether or not food is healthy. I care about whether or not water's clean. I care about if the air is clean.
Right.
Like, there shouldn't be. So, like, one of the things I'm doing for work, and the person who's helping me, Jayla, my God, she's a godsend for me, because she understands. Like, dude, we did the spreadsheet, right? 50 states. We broke every piece of legislation down by agriculture, vaccines, or pesticides, all three. What took me an hour to do 10 in one state, she got 6 states done. And I'm like, thank God for you. But I think I think I'm making a difference. And I hope that I am, because I'm my whole thing right now is in this movement, the health movement.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different organizations, and the problem is they all disagree on little things and they won't talk to each other because of it. So part of my job is making sure that I get on calls with them and I tell them, hey, we're here to help you. Like right now we have the big name. We're new to this, so we don't have the experience that you do, but we want your help.
Right.
And we're not here to take credit. I don't care who takes credit. I don't. If nobody ever knows that I did this, I do not care. I don't care who takes credit. Everybody could take credit for all I give a shit. I just want to make sure that 50 years from now, people are healthy and people are able to live their lives, and they don't have to worry about, 6 in 10 people having a chronic disease that they don't know about.
Sure. Yeah.
And, 1 in 34 boys having autism and not knowing why. Like it's the things like that like, I just want answers.
Sure.
And I know what the rumors are, and people are going to say, well, it's because of this and this. I don't know. I don't know that. So I'm not going to definitively say that it is or is not that. And that pisses people off when I say that, because there's a certain stigma right now. And if you follow politics, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to say it because things would get flagged, and Shane might kick my ass for going this far in depth.
I was going to say,
Sorry,
we're already
Shane.
going very political.
But I don't think so, though. I mean,
No.
we're talking political issues, but it's not. Health is not left or right. It's just correct. Sure. We need to be healthy.
Well, more so over, I think my point here was you made a very drastic move in. Yeah, we joke about hirings and firings, right?
Yeah.
But it was something where at that point you had years of experience at different levels in radio and in media.
I would probably be one of the main people running the station that I left right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah. And you pivoted because you had this inclination, right? You pivoted because you felt moved to do something else that was more important, or not even more important, but more that you felt you're going to have an impact.
So when I got the full-time job, that I was going through a rough spot then. Mm-hmm. And where I was at then...
I think that's around episode 12 time.
No, that's before.
Was that before?
That's before. I was in a bad place in Kent, and I remember I was sitting there on the couch and I started praying, and I said, I don't know how to get out of here. I don't know how, but I need you to help me, and I'm going to do whatever you need me to do. And yeah, I'm going to buck back sometimes, but man, whatever path you need me to go on, I'm going to go on it. But I need your help getting out of here. And 2 hours later, Ray Davis called me, offered me a full-time job. So I went, all right, whatever you need me to do, man, I'm on that path.
Right.
And it was getting rough at my old employer. There were just things going on and a lot of changes happening. And I knew I was safe, but I don't want to be safe. I want to be effective.
Sure.
And I prayed on it again. And I said, tell me what to do, man. Because right now I don't know what to do. I know I'm working my ass off, and I'm not the only one. By no means am I saying I work harder than anybody else, but I work my ass off. And I'm going, I need you to give me a sign, point me in the right direction. And the moment because I did it in a studio, I did it in a booth, and then I walked out. And the moment I did that, one of my coworkers said, you need to call so-and-so, and you need to tell them what's going on.
Yeah.
And then that's when I got the offer to join up with the campaign that I worked on.
Right.
And because we've referenced that before. I know we have.
Yeah.
And I got the chance to do that. And then I was out of position there for the first few months. And I prayed again. I said, there's a lot of things that I see I could help out with. I need the opportunity to do it. If you think I'd be successful there, help me get there. And then they moved me. So I'm not saying that I'm on a path from God. I feel like that's very cocky to say. But there are things being put on my path for me to do it. And I don't know why. I don't know why. But when it's presenting itself, I feel like I owe it to the person, to the thing that is putting it there to see it through. Because if I didn't do this, dude, I'd be kicking myself in the ass for not doing this.
Well, I think it's a combination of things too, right? I think number one, you're someone who has great conviction in whatever you set to pursue, that you're going to see it through and you're going to put your effort into it and you're going to make sure that is to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
So not only that, but I think on top of that, like we talked about before, this is how this conversation started, is you feel like you're making a difference, or that you can genuinely make a difference for a good cause in this.
Yeah.
So I think those two things working together, it's a driving force. And going back to the interviews we did, I think you were talking to Shane during your interview about how you got involved with WSRR and how we met maybe. And you said something along the lines of that you and I are alike in, the drive that we have for this. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's on the same level or anything like that, but it's taking yourself out of comfortability and doing what, number one, you think is right, what you think is more important, and what you think you can have an impact on and change. So, even in something where like the station, we could have stayed on where we were, and we could have kept that position, or we could have, still kept doing podcast, and we could have just flowed with what was easy, or we could have decided, hey, we can do better.
Well, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, in context on that, because I wouldn't tell people that unless I was willing to do it myself. I was never on an airplane. The last time I was on an airplane before July of 23 was in 8th grade when I went to Florida.
Okay.
That was it. And dude, I'm like platinum on United right now. And I book my own flights.
Weird flex, okay.
Right, but like, well, no, I found out today because when I booked a flight tomorrow, I got to go to Phoenix. But when I went to go pay for my bag, it said, "Oh, you get free bag because of your status." And I'm like, I've flown over 100,000 miles. And 2 years ago, I'd been on one. Oh, well, it'd be a year and a half ago. I'd been on one airplane.
Yeah,
that's it. And I didn't know how I would feel on an airplane. I didn't know if I'd be comfortable. And I'll tell you, when I was fat, it was really uncomfortable. That's how I realized I lost weight, because I didn't have to go on an airplane for like 2 months.
You were on an airplane?
When I sat down on a seat and I went, oh, I have room. Oh, wow. But and I tell this to our buddy Mac a lot. 2 things you have to be willing to do is take a risk on yourself and be uncomfortable, because I knew nobody going into this, and which is completely different, because even when I started at iHeart, I knew news anchors, I knew producers, and there was always somebody there that I knew. This, no. To the point that the guy who brought me in left a month later. And everybody's going, are we still going to have jobs? Like, what's going on? Like, and it's what I tell people that I work with now. I don't give a shit who is our boss. I don't care. I respect them and we will listen to them. But even if they are incompetent, we are going to do the best job that we could do. And we're either going to blow them away and make them look really smart, or if people know that they're incompetent, they're going to look at us and go, damn, what could you guys do if you had competent people above you?
Yeah.
And that to me is the goal. And I don't know if that's an ego thing. That might be an ego thing, but it could be.
I think a lot of it's this has to work mentality, right?
Yeah.
And I think in regard to podcasting or shows or media or, any kind of thing that's creative like that, it's people have that drive in concept.
Right.
It's easy to say, oh man, this is a great idea for a podcast. We're gonna really hit the ground running, and then you do 3 shows and they don't take off right away, and there's a scheduling conflict, so it goes by the wayside and you don't make it to 5 episodes. It's the person that's gonna succeed in it or continue to grow it or continue to move forward in it that's gonna go, all right, there's a bump in the road, but I'm committed to this and it's gonna have to work. We're gonna have to find a way around it, right? We have a show today without the host of the show. Right. We had to make it work. We had to find a way around it. And, not even at this point because it has to make air or because we have sponsors that depend on shows that they expect. Right. It's because that we've put how many episodes have we done now?
I think this is 80.
I was going to say 80s, 84 or something like that. We've done 80 something episodes of rolling with the punches, of cast changes, of topics, of staying here till 2 a.m. because we don't know what to talk about, having hours of scrapped episodes because they just weren't good, because we were burnt out. But it's that understanding that, okay, well, it's not an option to fail.
It doesn't want to load. I think it's like 84.
I want to say high 80s, right? Mid to
Yeah.
high 80s,
Yeah.
which is also crazy.
So that was a fucking lie.
The preceding program was a WSRR radio production.